elementary principals are here as we want to go through the elementary handbook. Elementary is what we're starting with, yeah.
What's our process here, Mr. Yancey?
Yeah.
Are we just going to start from the beginning, or
We're going to start with the elementary, and then what we'll do is there's some changes. Actually, this document's been reconfigured. They worked on it for quite a few months. So if there's any questions, or the changes were in yellow, if there's any policy changes. So
I got three questions, I think. First, a comment. Yeah, so if you read through these handbooks, a lot of the information, say 43% of the information is dry, but the rest of it's not, but it's all good information. Each one of the handbooks, elementary, junior high, high school, have a lot of the same information. There's an information in there about transportation, riding the bus. Everybody should read those from all three handbooks, because I think from the elementary standpoint, they did a good job of writing it as an elementary. Here's a new copy. I don't have them. And so if the elementary students read the handbook, that's one of the parts that wouldn't be dry, and it'd be good for them. So I'm assuming that elementary principals got together and worked on it together, right? Okay. So you guys did a great job. I have two questions. Under the student records, there's two copies of the new ones. Oh, there's only two
the
copies.
same as what's
Same as on the screen.
Okay.
So it's on the screen. It's just a hard copy if you want.
Anybody need a hard copy?
So it talks about student records, and if the parents have a complaint, they can file it with HHS. It's on page 1, paragraph, the bulleted section before health and safety. But very last bullet says to file a complaint with HHS if they believe there's any rights have been violated. So I don't know what HHS is here. In the other two handbooks, they have HEW instead of HHS. So I didn't know if it's different because it's elementary, or if two of the three are wrong, or one of the three is wrong, or what exactly is that, because it's not described anywhere in the document.
So HEW was an organization that no longer exists. Now it's Health and Human Services, I think is what it's called. So we just updated that because we didn't know what HEW was.
Okay.
So we looked it up, and we found that it's not
So it's
been existent since
it's HHS.
75, 79 was the last
Hum-
time that it was.
Health and Human Services or something like that.
Yeah.
So we can make that, I'm making notes, I can add that in there to say what
Expand it,
HHS
yeah.
is.
I mean, just in case I don't know if we've ever had any parents complain for this kind of thing, but I just noticed it was different. Okay.
Yeah.
And then another question I have is, on the back of the other two handbooks, they have a bullying report, where if you see it or something, you write it down. And then on this one, it talks about it's on the very last page, it talks about the NLCS Stop It Act. Is the Stop It Act active across the whole corporation?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Because I don't remember seeing it in the other two. I may have missed it, but there's information about bullying, the dry part, probably from the Neola policies, and then the report at the end, which is really good. But I didn't notice where they say anything about in the reporting part. I didn't see any part about the Stop app, so I just want to make sure it was accurate. I mean, it's across the corporation, right? Okay. Those are the only questions I had. I think you guys did a good job.
I had a question on, this is very minor, on the bottom of page 1, also under health and safety, about the children playing outdoors, and it just says a child needing to stay inside will need a note from home daily. What if there's a situation where, let's say a kid has asthma and the mom or dad wants them to be in for the week, do they really have to send a note daily, or could they just say, so-and-so needs to be inside this week? I mean, is that reasonable? I'm just thinking about the kid whose parent may not remember to do that. As a parent myself, I realize that's a very small thing, and it may be a guideline, but that it's reasonable to just be like, well, if mom sends in the note or dad or whoever, that they would be that would still cover that child to be inside if needed. Does that make sense?
It does. I think what we've done in the past is that we've had a parent maybe say for this week,
Okay.
we need that.
Okay. I was thinking like daily, like each day they have to send a note.
Well, so what happens then sometimes is the student might say, well, I have a note for that. Like, well, we don't have that today.
Mm.
You know, if they choose maybe not to go out, but they should be going outside. If they didn't want to, we want to make sure that the parent knows that and provides that for us. But most of the time, if a parent doesn't want their child to go out for a medical reason, asthma, or for, let's
Right.
say, they kind of send a little bit more of a blanket statement.
Right, like
and
this
then we take
week
that.
or
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That was very
Yeah.
minor.
The nurses also have the health care plans that they have in place, so
Yeah.
sometimes those care plans have it noted specifically if the temperature is over such and such or under such and such.
So another. I don't know from a legal standpoint, but if you look at on page 12, it's got student due process. It talks about removal from class or activity teacher. And number one, it's middle school, junior high, or high school teacher, and then number two, it's elementary teacher. So I didn't know if for clarity or brevity, if that first section could come out, since you only have elementary teachers.
It's all in the Indiana code, though.
It's Indiana code,
So
okay.
we can't pick and choose what we put in
Right.
there from that, so we
Have to
just blanket,
Whole thing,
put it all
okay.
in there. Yeah.
Okay. I have another one. Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah.
The latest version?
Yeah.
All right, page 18, I don't have the latest version yet. So, second bullet, can you read that to me? Pants and shorts?
Pants and shorts are to be worn at the waist, and pajamas are prohibited unless.
Yeah.
We'd like to leave that open-ended.
So, I think maybe we could change, probably was gonna change it to say pajamas are not allowed or something, but.
No, because we have like
They have
pajama
pajama
day.
day.
Except, all right.
So that's what that.
And it's probably what it was, but it
Thank you.
has been changed.
Yeah. Unless
Okay,
principal.
so it was modified, okay.
Oh, yeah, his version just has unless.
Mine's from last Friday, I haven't looked on, so
So
we
you
did
and I have
we did
the-
get it changed, okay.
maybe less.
We got the same one, okay.
Polar Express
I think-
Day, right?
Right,
That's-
yeah. Spirit Week, the last day's pajama day, or something,
Okay.
unless it's something like that.
Okay, I thought that's what it was supposed to say, but,
Yeah.
okay.
And it looks like maybe there's another version that has it in there? Is
Yes,
that correct? Yeah, so I apologize.
we'll have somebody send you one.
Do we have any other questions? We do have a month, so if there is anything you have questions on, please call us and maybe the principals.
I think it's very thorough, and I appreciate all the work that you put into it. I realize this is not a small task to think about every little possible thing, so thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guess I should get middle school.
It is a
So-
little different setting here, though. I feel like I'm in court.
I have a question for your assistant. So, why in the heck,
Don't see his name on there.
it's in yellow. Very good job on this. So on the page 5, talks about device rental. said all children permitted to rent a device. Do you just leave that generic instead of putting Chromebook, or is there multiple devices they can rent? I mean, is it just to be
It would just be a Chromebook.
generic?
Yeah.
Okay, but
Yeah.
really all we rent right now are Chromebooks, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then on page 10, if it's still accurate, the same thing. It's about if the parent has a complaint about when the student information, they should go to HEW. That should probably be HHS.
Yeah, got
Okay.
that one.
Okay. And then on page, the table on page 9, and this may be just another, before the final walkthrough, but on the table on page 9, it talks about ISS, which is, I guess, it's in-school suspension. And then page 11, it talks about the SRO, and those really aren't spelled out anywhere.
Okay.
I can't imagine, most students would definitely know that. I imagine most guardians and parents will also, but those acronyms should be spelled at least once, somewhere.
Are there any other acronyms that you noticed that?
Those are the only two that I read the high school one first, and when I got yours, I didn't look at, like, some of the dry stuff, about explosions and weapons and all those. I didn't look at all those real close, but I think I caught them all in the high school side, so.
On page 10, you've got HEW. It'll have to be updated.
On page 20, if I can find it. So under student progress monitoring, I didn't know if we want to put the Power School link in here, in this paragraph. I mean, it's,
Certainly can.
I didn't know if we don't want to do it because at some point it might change, but if they could just see the link here, it might be easier for them to type it in. I mean, it's digitally, they can click on it. And then at the bottom, a little farther down on that page where it says grading scale honor roll. For the A honor roll, it says recognize on an A honor roll by achieving the letter grade of A. And then on the regular honor roll, it says recognize on the regular honor roll grades 6 through 12 by achieving those letter grades. We could probably take out the 6 through 12 to make it consistent, or add it. And then on page, are you ready? I'm sorry. Your assistant should be taking notes. So on page 27.
You'll probably see a bunch of them because I'm just adding them as comments, so you may see a lot of things.
On page 27, it's got a paragraph on grade level participation. That's not highlighted in yellow. Was that policy in place last year, or is it new for this year?
Say that again, which,
On page 27, second from the bottom, highlighted area, it says grade level participation. It's not highlighted in yellow. So was this in last year's handbook, or is it new to this year's handbook? Next year's?
this was in this year's.
Okay.
The current school year's handbook.
Okay. That's all I got.
I scrolled through and saw one thing that cued a thought, and this is really to Mr. Underwood more, or Mr. Yancey. So closing of school, there was a section on that, and I don't know that it was in the elementary or BNL, but I didn't know if we
It's an all.
codified the rough rules of thumb that we were going to use to close schools for weather-related. I know we did a communication about that, but I don't know if we actually, again, codified that anywhere. I don't know if the handbooks are the right place or somewhere else, but that may be something we want to circle back to.
Or is that is it too limiting to do that from your perspective? Like, we don't want you in a situation where you feel like, yes, we should definitely close, but it doesn't meet, you know what I mean? Because there's so many factors. I don't want you to get in a situation where you're like, well, I really feel like we should, but we can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It can't be totally black and white.
Right.
We've got to have some gray area. We've got to be able to close when we need to and stay open when we can. But yeah, I think if you word it like Adam was talking about,
A rule of thumb, a rough
rule of thumb,
guideline.
general
Yeah.
Yeah.
rough guideline on it.
again, I don't know if the handbook is the right place, or if the administrative policy is gonna be the right place, or,
I would like to check around with some of the neighboring districts. I know MCCSC's is on their, corporation
yeah.
district, guidelines there. But I will check to see if Wilmington South, Wilmington North, Mitchell, what they do. I think it's a good thing to have out there.
If families are looking at the handbooks more than anything else, it may be the handbooks, the student handbooks that you would wanna have them in. Or, putting it in multiple places, the same statement may not be bad either, I don't know.
Probably a really good idea, and certainly not opposed to that.
So
If
is
they
this
can find
something
it in
you're
the plan.
saying we would leave in?
I'm sorry?
Like in our handbook on page 23, sorry.
Yeah, it does say 24.
Yeah, that needs to be updated now.
I think just leave it as it is right now for now, right? Just leave it in the generic
Yeah, I think so.
sense.
Yeah, I wasn't saying we should take anything out.
Just made me think of
It
it.
was just made me think of a lot of questions around why we didn't or why we did, given the wind chill or the real felt temperature, and the real temperature or the felt temperature, and you had I thought some really good guidelines that are not listed here, and that maybe that's one thing we want to put in, so.
I think it's a good idea.
Think about it. I'm not saying we have to do it one way or the other.
On page 24, I saw where it's marked out about the photography class and media experience using their cell phones. Is that because those classes aren't offered anymore?
So the photography class was an exploratory elective class. It will not be offered next school year. Media experience class, we as an administration of VMS do not feel that it's necessary for
Okay.
students to use their personal devices for that class. We feel like they have
Okay, the
Chromebooks.
photography one is really the one I'm thinking about because I know they use their phones too.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm good.
I'm good.
No other questions?
Thank you, great job. I'm not gonna sit with you, that's hard.
Oh, heck. All right.
Oh, this does remind me from Ms. Wagner. So the B&L handbook has a section about AI and essentially the prohibited use of AI to write your papers. I did not see, just in a quick scan, that the middle school has anything like that. Is there anything in there about that?
We do not have anything in there, and I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I feel like that's something we need to mirror.
I would think that middle schoolers by that age would be figuring out.
Yeah,
My own middle schooler may be
we'll
going,
be,
Dad,
we'll
shut
be
up.
talking about it in a minute.
But,
I will work with Mr. Deanna to add.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right. High
Who
school.
wants to go first? Ladies first, the Career Center?
Sure.
Are you guys really comfortable?
That mean we're gonna be here
We've
for a
only
while?
got 37 minutes.
All right, so, there's a lot of commonality between Career Center and high school. And I haven't looked at the new version. My version, the formatting was kind of messed up, so I skimmed it quickly and didn't see a lot of information that was significantly different from the high school, so I don't have any questions about this one. I look at the new one. Do we have it here? Oh, there it is. Oh, much better. So I will ask you a question. Go ahead.
Well, I did not look at this one exclusively on that AI question that I asked Heidi. Does it exist in here also for the Career Center?
I do not have anything about it.
Okay,
They would probably use that less.
possible.
Do you think there's a need to, or,
Probably.
I mean, we could just use the same consistent statement through.
And I will say, we misspelled the word ensure in the AI statement paragraph. We use the I when we should have used the E, so AI ironically probably would have caught that, so.
I don't know, it does hallucinate, so it depends on.
It may have been AI written, who knows?
So,
That's all right.
so,
How much of a problem is this becoming right now?
That may be something that Matt deals with more, just given the length of assignments.
I mean, I wouldn't suggest that it's problematic. I mean, it does happen, not in entirety, but no much more than plagiarism has happened before. I mean, certainly some of those things there, but it can also be used in very positive ways, generating ideas and inspiration in other applications. And so, obviously, we're just keeping that.
if you have the right
That
LLM,
there,
yeah.
but-
So, since we're on, I'm going, it's in the B&L handbook. But the first part talks about, encourage to use it, but you gotta be careful with it. And then
Correct.
the teachers are allowed to use it where they want to, and they make the decision and talk to the students. So the teachers are solely responsible then for deciding if they use AI, how much they use AI, and how much there's not like a run through the curriculum director or a run through the principal or anything. It's just the teachers decide. And then the second paragraph there, it has like general guidelines. So maybe just from a policy standpoint, it might be the sections start out, these are the general guidelines across at least the school, and maybe they could use that for the other schools as well. And then have a separate section, where it has to do with within the classroom and how that can or should be handled, or how you're going to handle it, basically. Because it kind of goes between classroom and in general, and it's you want to make sure it's not confusing to students especially, but then if parents have to get involved at some point. But just suggestion, because it kind of bounces back and forth. It's a very new thing, but I think that would one of those areas where clarification is probably crucial.
Yes, and I mean, that term artificial intelligence encompasses so many things. I mean, if you use a text-to-speech application, I mean, that's the use of artificial intelligence in some capacity, but it's more the generation of ideas is kind of where those things coming from, so.
So, are we in high school?
That's where I flipped over.
All right. So, on the first part, it talks on page 5, under school communications mass notification system, says make sure you have the correct phone number on file. Should they also have an email on file, or does this just pertain to the during the day type of thing? I mean, should we also suggest to have? I know they have the option of being phone or email, but we probably
Yes.
ought to say make sure you got the right email too. And on page 11, has to do with student information, and again, it has the HEW instead of the HHS. And then on page 33, under active intervention and mentoring, that's a great term. Throughout that paragraph, sometimes it's A.I.M. Sometimes it's AIM. It should probably just be consistent. I skipped one. Are you good? Page 18 at the very bottom.
Oh, we're going backwards?
Sorry, I missed it.
Just making sure you're.
I'm here.
Good.
With you.
So at the bottom, it talks about tips for college admission.
Mhm.
Under number 3, it says apply to college no later than the first trimester.
Oh, yeah, we don't want that, no.
And then on page 34, at the bottom, under, I'm not even sure, I'm sorry, it's very top, excuse me. Under expulsion, it references trimesters a couple times.
Yeah, and there was also a reference to red, white, and blue days. Are those still a thing? Or
Advisory, yeah, first.
those are
Yes.
advisory?
Yeah,
Okay.
advisory.
I didn't know if that faded out with trimesters also.
And they interchange Friday and red, but that's what it is. right?
Okay.
And it's first period still, correct?
Yes, we
Okay.
have a first period, but it's prior to that, so.
And then on
first
page
part of the day.
35 is one of those dry sections where it has grounds for suspension or expulsion. And then, so in the other two handbooks, it lists the process for suspension and the process for expulsion. And in this document, it jumps from here right to the transportation discipline. And I think maybe those two processes got deleted out when they did a cut and paste or something. So I couldn't find the actual processes in this one for those two activities. So we might want to, I didn't go back and look at every page again, but I skimmed it when I did the other two and couldn't find it. So I think maybe it just got bumped out somehow. And then, do we upgrade? What did I say, page 35. Hang on. No, if we go, let me,
It's on 33 and 34, but
yeah, but
prior to the dry part.
if you look at the other two, it has suspension procedures and expulsion procedures. And they're a little more explicit.
That's a great section to add in, but
Yeah, so,
You want us to add in the Indiana code just like we did in the other two?
Yep.
And be
yes, I think it was,
yeah.
is it in there?
Are you talking about just flow of it, Scott?
No,
The
just,
flow and the ordering of it?
I found grounds for suspension and dismissal, but I didn't find these actual procedures. When a principal determines a student should be expelled, is it in there? I didn't do a, yeah, I didn't do a search on it, but.
We have the code, but probably not the process, so I'll work with the school.
I just did a search for it.
Yeah, I think it just, yeah.
Which page are you trying to copy from the middle school?
Let's see, I don't have the middle school, I got the elementary, look on elementary, page 15, yeah, that one. The old 15. I can find it in the other one. Which leads me to my next comment, so. Oh. So on page 17 in middle school. So after other grounds for suspension, expulsion, it has procedures for those. I just didn't notice it in this one. And then the next one was the transportation bus discipline, and it just seemed kind of out of place. I thought there might have been an addition or cut and paste revision. Do we get the varsity letter stuff added?
I saw an email between Adam and Matt.
Okay,
Yeah, it should be.
okay,
Yes, it's in the updated digital
okay.
version.
So, I have a general comment. Any more specific questions?
Okay, on the athletic, under transfer, do we need to update that to the new IHSAA rule?
What page you on?
That's towards the end.
38.
There it is.
Yes, we probably need to update to include that information, yes. Once it's finalized in June.
we have the varsity letter stuff in there?
AI would find that, yeah.
I don't see it.
It should be under athlete awards,
39,
Page
page
38 at the
39,
bottom.
athletic letters,
page 39.
39.
Letter,
Bottom.
like he's looking for letter.
Says athlete awards.
Yeah, but there should be a verbiage on each sport. There should be how each sport is, it's not, I know.
Oh.
But there's
okay,
supposed to
that
be a
goes-
section after that.
Oh, I see.
So, just, I guess this would go to,
What would you like to see?
Adam has the information at Mr. Yates.
So it's a, what, per sport indication?
Yeah, it's per sport, how
Per
an
sport.
athlete, how varsity letter. And then it has leeway for coach's discretion, but, so the student and parents know going in, right? So,
Is Adam gonna add that to the document then for Jim?
I think it should be added for its final release, right?
Yes, I will do that. This is all I had that was updated.
Yeah, this stuff, well, the very first sentence was added, but that's all, so.
Correct.
So, there's a lot of information in these handbooks that are the same, right, legal and all that. So if you go in here, some of them give you just non-discrimination information on page 4, and some of them are on page 30, and then, these policies are, if you have a middle school student and a high school student, you try to read these handbooks, I think there needs to be some consistent order, maybe, like for the high school, it's got table of contents, and it's got stuff about the school, and then general information, and then attendance, and then academics, and those kind of things, but if you go to the other two, the order is different, right? All the information is good, and I know a lot of the information is gonna be different between the schools, but then, 43.5% is the same because it's either code or policy. So I just think from a corporation standpoint, it might be a good idea if these follow the same flow, the same table of contents or format or whatever. And then there'd be, like I said, there'll be some specifics for each school, which would be different, and that's understandable, but, just somebody organize them together so that it's just, if you have to read more than one, it's easier, and there may be, 167 parents and guardians who have to do that, so I think just from a corporation standpoint, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
I have a question on page 32 about the tardies and the consequences. And this is, I may not be right here, but on the 12th to 14th tardy, they get referred to the BNL student success team, and then on the 15th tardy, they get out of school suspension. I'm wondering I realize there needs to be a consequence, but also I think there's a lot of reasons that someone could be tardy that maybe isn't necessarily a choice. Would it be possible to have them referred to that success team a little earlier? I don't know exactly what the success team is, but that maybe, 12 to 14 I feel like is a lot. So I guess I'm not saying prescribing that you do that, but I guess is there a rationale for waiting that long? Or I realize there's a parent conference before then, but up to 14 just seems a long time to wait, and then they get suspended with the very next one.
Merely the rationale is just the speed in which they could pick up. Students either pick them up quickly or never pick them up, if that makes sense.
What do you mean? They rack up the tardies?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
so those are, two school or two class, and so it typically escalates quickly or doesn't escalate to that, but
Okay.
and many times they can come up earlier. So the student success team is just administration and counselors and a few other key personnel that we work through students individually. And
So if there
come up
were
with resources.
a student who were having issues with tardy, it doesn't necessarily prevent them from seeing the success team earlier than that.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was
Correct.
not
That's kind of more
understanding.
like a catch-all if they've not been in there.
Right, if they haven't been in there, it would. Okay.
And most of that is just reallocation of resources and additional supports
Okay.
to figuring out.
I thought they had to do this to qualify for it, but that doesn't seem
Not true.
Okay.
Yes.
perfect.
But bringing that up earlier makes all great sense as well.
Thank you.
Is that
Per semester.
We talked, and I can't remember in what circles we talked, about the use or the deployment of Narcan, and or the handing out of Narcan in certain scenarios. Is that addressed in anywhere in the either the BNL or the NLCC handbook?
It is not in the handbook. We've been fortunate to partner with IU School of Nursing to come and train our health science students.
Yes.
And then we send home essentially a parent permission form. If all students are trained in the use, if they would like to take Narcan with them, they bring in a signed parent permission form.
Okay. And I don't know if it needs to be or if it needs to be more broadly discussed or more widely distributed or less. I'm not saying one way or the other. I just remember it in my little brain because my daughter was one of those that was trained by IU and had it dispersed. So, all right. Thank you. I guess my follow-on comment to that is, to the extent of whatever, modern or progressive schools are doing in that area, we may want to look at that as a model, so.
I will share, my staff is all trained in the use, and we have some located in the classrooms that do the adult education classes. We're bringing in a different clientele. We want to ensure that everyone's trained should that need arise.
All right, thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Do the school nurses at the middle school and high school, do they have access to Narcan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Elementary as well.
elementary as well. Okay.
Guys, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much.
Then, at your desk, there, you have a copy of the strategic plan.
That was weak, I was expecting more from that.
As we look through this, again, we've had work sessions, and it's been quite a few months as this document has been put together. So on page 2, again, our vision is, of course, building stars, and our mission is equipping every star with pathways to success. As we read through that, does anyone have any questions or? And I will tell you, we've been using our vision building stars in quite a few of the commercials that you'll be seeing in the near future already that David's put together. Then the next page, of course, is the focus areas. Number 1 is academics. Goes through to the next page. On page 4 is required outcomes, and we had some questions about the first one on the iRead exam or iRead assessment. We can break this down. The issue comes back to from general education to special education. You can do social, economic. We can break it down into 3 different types because we do have subgroups that the state does look at in passing any type of achievement test or state test. And of course, that is a general statement that comes from the state of Indiana. They want to have a goal by 2027 that 97% of all of our students, the highest they've ever reached is 92% before COVID. So this is a very lofty goal by the state of Indiana. But again, one of our board members asked me again, what does our general education, our population do on the test? We should be close to 99 to 100% of all general education students should be passing this test with interventions and so forth. Special needs students, it's a little over 50%, I think, in the corporation right now. And again, there are some special needs students, it'd be very hard for them to pass this test. Subgroups, when it comes to social economic, our social economic group does quite well on this test. So, but I can break it down for you, or you can just have that data separated as we go through. The next is the iLearn.
My only comment on the iRead, so
Okay.
if that, so we say early in the front matter of this document that this is a 3 to 5 year
Yes.
document, right?
Mhm.
And then we set a goal here that's by August 2027, which is fine, especially if it's a state goal. But I would say just after that, instead of period after 2027, comma, in line with state of Indiana goals or something like that. Just to recognize why that's a shorter timeline goal than even some of the other ones listed later in here.
Thank you.
I think it's more significant because we want to make sure all of the third graders can read before they get done with third grade. I mean, it should be 2026, the goal, but, even the state, but I mean, starting next year, potential of being held back, so I think it's, for this one, it makes sense to be a little shorter.
In terms of, so it's at 89. That's
Yes,
current.
ma'am.
Last. It's a lagging, right?
Right.
What I don't want to happen is a teacher to meet, 94% or increase to, because there's so many variables here
Oh.
that
Yes,
the
ma'am.
teacher cannot control. So I guess what I'm just saying is I'm just thinking about that. I don't want it to be used. I'm not saying we shouldn't have a standard and we shouldn't strive for what the state says. I totally agree with that. But I guess I would be interested in how teachers might perceive that as, is it okay with them? Is it not okay with them to see something like that? And there are teachers here, I don't know what they want to say.
89% number is from.
It's a year ago, right?
Well, it's for the general education, right? Our overall score was 79. If you add.
If
right?
they have all students, right?
Right.
Okay.
So this number, if we don't, separate general education, then it's actually, we go from 79 to whatever we make it, right? But the reason I'd separate out earlier because the way the test is given and regiven, that we shouldn't any reason why we shouldn't have a general education student be proficient when they're in the end of the third grade, because there are so many variables outside that, right? So this 89% is not for all students. That's not where we're currently at. We're currently at 79.4%.
But again, are you advocating we should state that that's general education? Insert that phrase in there?
Well, that's
saying.
That's what I originally must have separating general education versus special education. And
They do have some,
I just think you can't separate, you can't have separate goals for gen ed students and special education students. Just having separate goals for IB pass rates for gen ed students and special education students. We can't set different goals. They're all our students.
okay. So I'll change it back to the true number, 79, and leave it with the state number at 97. What they demand, or what their goal is to try to do in the state. You
And-
gotta remember, the state years ago, we were gonna have 100% graduation rate. Well, you know, that's faulty. That's it, totally. So it was Tony Bennett that came in as state superintendent and changed it to 90 to 92%. That was realistic, that we could hit if you worked at it. Because remember, some high schools were in the 70s back in that time frame. So you try to set goals that's reasonable, that people can hit, that gives people hope that we are improving. And the state, at least, I think this is an unreasonable goal for the state.
So,
I don't see that the state's
Yeah.
not gonna hit this goal.
and I don't want to belabor this, but
Yeah.
I don't know what the state is going to do either. I don't know how reasonable this is. It seems high.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be used by the state or us or anyone to come back on the teachers.
It's not used punitive on their evaluation. Now, I would tell you, if I had a class and had a huge concern,
Well,
we're
right.
gonna
There's
research it.
there's reasonable, and
Yeah.
there's the administration
Yeah.
should be able to evaluate, but just saying a number
right,
on a percentage on test scores doesn't. So my other question is, could we say, and I mean, I know this is only for a few years, but you could also say we want to hit the state benchmark, whatever that is, versus putting the number in.
we can. It's,
And then it covers you for whenever if that benchmark changes. I mean, if it's 100%, no school's gonna
right.
hit that.
If the state says we need to be at 97%, does that mean if some students don't get to 60, then, whatever it is, 448, then they won't be held back? I mean, are they gonna say,
There's-
if you're at 97, you're okay?
There's a whole list of things that allow a kid to be promoted.
I mean, but they're the ones that come out and say
Right,
you have to be able to,
right.
so.
I was just saying for ease, putting state standard, because that state standard could change.
Yes, it could change
I mean-
by the Indiana Department of Education.
Right, so
maybe.
if the IDOE changes it, then whatever it goes to, we wouldn't have to change the number. But that's a very small operational thing.
So to go back to this real quick, so you want me to use the 79% and keep the 97, but put a comma in there and tell that this is the Indiana standard? Yep, in line.
We want to maintain
The benchmark.
the benchmark set by the state.
benchmark.
And then you don't even have to put the 89%.
Okay.
We want to maintain that at all times, right? So if it goes up
At
to
a
90, and if it goes up to 98, then we don't have to change the,
Meet or exceed the state standard.
right, meet or exceed the current state standard.
You know, we make a statement early on in the superintendent's message about being a high-performing district, and then the upper half of the
Right.
schools. And so they'd be a little better than average,
Yep.
is what that would mean.
Yes.
So, yeah, so I think meeting the state average there would be the meet or
The
meet or
state
exceed.
benchmark,
Meet or exceed would be good.
meet or,
We have about 6 minutes left before we need to start the regular meeting, so I don't know at what pace we're gonna.
well, really, it's just this page, and when we take a look at the iLearn assessment, I just want you, if you read the first one there, we will grow from 35.6 in the spring of 2024 to at or above 45% by the spring of 2025.
These
So the
numbers
benchmark
are too
is,
low.
the benchmark is pretty much 44 to 45% in the state. So as you can see, we're behind, so you want to be above that benchmark.
But the average is 41. I mean,
Yeah.
we want if we want to be a top performing school, we're going to have to be, we can't say, well, we're a point above average coming to our school.
Right.
I mean, we need to set a goal. It's 3 years from now. I mean, it's 3 years out to achieve better than state average. I mean, it's,
And state average is what there, 41%, did you say?
Yes.
The curriculum directors, I think, have had some input into this and looked at this. Dr. Miller, Ms. Hudson. Are these numbers your recommendations then?
At or exceeding state average is what we.
Exactly.
we can't be complacent with meeting state average. We want to be a high performing school. We want to improve our position. And our goals should be to be as high above average as possible. I mean,
Do they set,
we
do
don't
they
want
set
to reach for
goals?
mediocrity. We don't.
Well, they haven't, you don't have a letter grade yet because the state has not had a letter grade on our schools for 5 or 6 years.
So, but
So
do they
all the-
give?
And they've changed the test over the last 5 or 6 years. So as you know, Lucy keeps moving the football on Charlie Brown.
So the proficiency on like state ELA, this is just reporting what
That's
the current
analogy.
is. They're not giving us a goal or okay. So it's not the same as the iRead.
You know, what you try to do is if you're above state average, you're going to be a B district easily. I don't believe now we're at a B district, but how can I prove that? Because there's no there's no data from the state to say where the cutoff scores are.
Right.
So, we're trying to improve in all aspects, but I don't know what the state's
Yeah,
doing.
and I think the egg school is the
15% of
Goal.
the school corporations in Indiana score above 50 right now.
Yep.
15%. I mean,
Yep.
do we want to be in the upper echelon? I mean, this is the 3 to 5 year goal.
Yeah. So that, to do that, we would have
To
to
reach
be
for
in the
average
50s.
is not a good thing to
And-
reach for.
But I think in the context of where we're starting from is the concern, right? I mean, it's about the ground you have to make up, so
Yeah, but it's, we work towards it, and then we monitor it, and then as we get to the next year, we look at it again. I mean, it's,
But we don't want to scare off a parent that might.
it's not going to scare anybody off. I mean, it's a goal we're shooting for. I mean, why would we want to be a top performing school that's average? I mean, we should want to be above average.
yeah, we're gonna have to cut this off and get ready for the regular meeting. I think we could circle around this for days and not come to agreement on it, unfortunately. But we do need to wrap this document up, so, and I had asked earlier that we do that by the end of the performance period, which is by June, which is next meeting, so, let's try to work that in the interim and get to this where at the next meeting, we can have this
It's,
a consensus at
Yeah,
least. It's
it's
not
not-
like we vote on. I
it's
don't
not
think.
voted on.
No, we just
It's, so really, it goes back to the numbers between 45, you have to be in the 50s to be in the top 25%. There's no doubt.
Okay, let's take a 2-minute break, for those that need to use the restroom before we get started. Then we'll start the regular